Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. As you know, my name is Alive, and today we're going to be talking about raiding as a mage in Classic WoW. Let's get right into it. Mages are the premier AoE class in Classic WoW, but also have a large array of other spells for single target nuking or even convenience. Mages are even able to make money with their convenience services, using spells like Portal to Orgrimmar, Portal to Stormwind, or portaling whoever you want, wherever you want. Not only are you able to help people travel around the world, but you can also conjure high levels of water and food. Typically, when you're a mage and performing these services for other people, they'll end up giving you tips, especially for food and water, since the tip that you give the mage will usually end up being less money spent than actually going to a vendor and spending your money. If you're a mage and playing on Alliance, you have a much more definitive answer as to what race is best, and that's Gnome. Gnomes have 4 more intellect and 1 less spirit compared to humans. Although again, as usual, between the races it really comes down to what their racial abilities are. Gnomes have the advantage over humans due to a racial ability called Expansive Mind. Expansive Mind gives any gnome player 5% more intellect, and this scales with any sort of buff or intellect that you get on gear and so on. This 5% more intellect gets more and more significant as time goes on during the game. As the player continues to play the game, he'll go through the raids getting gear upgrades, getting more and more intellect, making this buff stronger and stronger the better your character gets. Humans, on the other hand, also give 5% increase to a stat. However, the stat that they have 5% more of is Spirit, and Spirit's not so useful for mages. It doesn't contribute to your DPS and doesn't contribute to a significant amount of mana regeneration. Mages on Horde side have 2 options of races to choose from: Undead or Troll. Both of these options are good choices and fill different niches. Undead have 2 more base intellect and 4 more base spirit over Trolls. However, this difference is trivial. As usual, the real difference comes from racial abilities. The only significant racial Undead has for Mage is Will of the Forsaken. This ability is great in PvP, but only applies to a handful of situations in PvE. However, in the situations that it does apply, it gives you a large advantage over Troll mages. Trolls, on the other hand, have a racial ability that can be applied to almost any situation. This ability that I'm talking about is Berserking. There's a common misconception with this ability though. Most times that you'll end up activating this ability, you're going to be at full HP, leaving you with only 10% increased cast speed for 10 seconds. 10% increased cast speed isn't enough for the mage to actually gain 1 extra Frostbolt or Fireball during that 10 seconds, making it not as useful as people believe. On the other hand, on the off chances that Trolls are low HP and get to activate Berserking for its full value, it feels great. Either of these 2 races are good for Horde mages. Now that we've determined what race you're going to play depending on what faction you choose, let's go over the talent specs. First, let's go over Arcane Frost spec. Arcane Power Frost, or AP, is the best Frost DPS spec. Not only is this spec extremely mana efficient, being able to combine such talent points as Arcane Concentration, Arcane Meditation, and Frost Channeling, but it also has cooldowns you can utilize to do more damage when needed. The first of these cooldowns is called Arcane Power. Arcane Power is a buff the mage can give himself to increase the damage he does by 30% for 15 seconds. While this buff is active, your spells do cost 30% more mana. However, this sort of buff is usually used in situations where you need to burn down a mob very fast. Arcane Power is not the only cooldown that this spec gains though. Another cooldown that this spec gains is Presence of Mind, also in the Arcane tree. Presence of Mind can also be used for burst, single target burst, or AoE burst. It can be devastating to cast Flame Strike on a bunch of mobs in raid, then activate Presence of Mind to instantly cast another Flame Strike on top of the first one, doing massive amounts of AoE damage. The next Frost spec that we'll look at is Winter's Chill, or WC spec. Winter's Chill spec is a lower DPS version of the spec that we mentioned previously. However, it provides more utility. This spec still has the important mana regeneration abilities, but misses out on the important cooldowns such as Presence of Mind and Arcane Power that can boost a mage's damage significantly. The notable talent in this spec, though, is called Winter's Chill, what the spec is named after. Classic WoW raiding is all about maximizing your raid's potential damage output, and bringing one mage spec'd into Winter's Chill boosts the DPS of all the other mages in your raid significantly. One bonus of being the Winter's Chill mage, though, is this spec is much more viable in PvP situations compared to the Arcane Power spec. So, if you have a mage in your raid that likes to PvP much more than all of the other mages, it's quite common to make that mage the Winter's Chill mage, as he won't have to respec as much to do that PvP. Okay, so I saved the best spec for last. This is the spec that most mage players end up playing a mage for. This spec is Fire. This Fire spec is the real deal when it comes to damage. Why, may you ask? It doesn't have any talent that increases critical strike damage like Frost does. It doesn't even have Presence of Mind or Arcane Power like Frost. Why is it good? Well, the talent Ignite trumps all of that. If the mages play properly, the Ignite ability can burn the target for huge ticks of damage. So much, in fact, that if you're carrying the Ignite for any given boss, it is difficult for any other DPS class to compare to your damage. Ignite damage, as well as other fire damage, is then further increased with 5 stacks of improved Scorch. Moreover, having the ability Blast Wave alongside Flame Strike ends up being more AoE damage than the Presence of Mind combo that I mentioned in the AP Frost spec. These AoE abilities are further buffed by the complementary talents in the Fire tree, making your overall fire damage spells do more damage and receive critical strikes more often. Also, these critical strikes that your AoE abilities are doing can trigger a small Ignite on all of the mobs hit as well, making them burn for more damage. Sadly, this amazing spec isn't really viable till the second half of Classic WoW, when Encourage comes around. The reason this is most of the enemies in Blackwing Lair and Molten Core in the beginning half of Classic WoW have a very high resistance to fire, making this spec not worth it. Okay, so let's look at the consumables that Mage is going to need for raid. As always, there are a huge array of consumables that you can use in Classic WoW. However, the most important ones are going to be the ones that keep you alive and increase your damage. Some of the essentials Mage wants to bring to raid are Flask of Supreme Power to increase your spell power by 150, Greater Arcane Elixir to increase your spell damage by 35, Elixir of Frost Power if you're raiding as Frost to increase your frost damage by 15, or if you're ready to raid as Fire and you're in the later half of the game, you use Elixir of Greater Firepower. Increases the fire damage from your spells by 40 for 30 minutes. Also, on long fights, the mage might find himself having to use a potion called Major Mana Potion to replenish some of the mana he's used. As for defensive potions, you want to keep Limited and Vulnerability Potion in your bags. Mages can do a huge amount of damage, especially AoE. And in AoE situations, if you're doing a lot of damage, it's common that your tank is gonna lose threat on one or several of the mobs. Limited and Vulnerability Potion is gonna save you from instantly being blown up, crit, or crushed by any of these monsters. Alongside Limited and Vulnerability Potion, you're gonna want to bring Protection Potions depending on what raid you're in. Some of these protection potions are Greater Fire Protection Potion for Molten Core or Greater Nature Protection Potion for Encourage. Next, let's talk about professions. Does it matter what two professions you go as a mage? Yes, it does. The two professions PvE mages are going to want are engineering and tailoring. In the early game, there's a best-in-slot robe that can only be crafted if you have 300 tailoring. This robe is called Robe of the Archmage. Later on, when Zul'Gurub comes out, there will be an item set called Bloodvine Set. While this set doesn't require you to have 300 tailoring to wear it, having 300 tailoring will activate its 3-piece bonus, giving the mage with 300 tailoring 2% extra crit above those who don't have 300 tailoring. Unlike tailoring, engineering does not give you any special pieces of gear you can craft really, other than the occasional green lens early game. Instead, it gives you access to handy trinkets such as Gadget Sand Teleport or Winter Spring Teleport, or an array of other trinkets. The most important thing that engineering gives you for PvE are the explosives, primarily Goblin Sapper Charge. Goblin Sapper Charge can give you a massive boost in damage in heavy AoE situations, as it is an instant cast ability. Okay, so let's finally get into the playstyle of mages. Unlike warlocks, who lack hit rating and threat reduction talents, mages tend to have very consistent damage throughout Classic WoW. However, they have less % damage multiplier debuffs than warlocks, meaning their spells like Frostbolt or Fireball tend to crit for a little bit less than Shadowbolt. Mages make up for this by getting critical strikes very often with a fully stacked Winter's Chill, or by receiving huge ticks of Ignite. Let's start off with a single target situation. Raiding as Frost can be pretty simplistic yet blissful. Once in position, you sit back and you just cast Frostbolt till the boss dies. However, right before the boss dies, if you can't fit in another Frostbolt, the mage can finish the boss with a well-timed Fire Blast or even Cone of Cold if you're quick enough. Arcane Power should be used at times where you need to burn a boss quickly or a trash pack quickly, and is paired especially well with a mage that has obtained the trinket Mind Quickening Gem. As for Fire single target, you and all of the other mages are going to want to start off the boss fight casting Scorch to get 5 stacks of improved Scorch up immediately. Once that is completed, all of the other mages can cast Pyroblast to try to get the best Ignite possible, or just cast Fireball. From there, mages have to rotate Ignite. Now, what do I mean by rotate Ignite? You can't choose who gets Ignite first, and then choose who to hand off the Ignite to next. Only one mage can have Ignite at any given time, generating more and more threat as the Ignite continues to do damage. Rotating Ignite means that the mage that has the Ignite has gotten too high of threat and needs to drop the Ignite so that the next mage can pick it up. To do this, sometimes you'll have fire mages intentionally stop casting so that they don't over-aggro a boss with their Ignite and wipe the raid. And then once their Ignite is dropped, another mage will start the Ignite. As any of these mage specs, your bread and butter high damage AoE spells are going to be Flame Strike and Arcane Explosion, with the exception of Fire Spec also having Blast Wave. Under most AoE circumstances, the mage will want to lead off with a Flame Strike into a Blast Wave if you're fire. Otherwise, just go straight into Arcane Explosion. However, if you're Frost, you can fit in a Cone of Cold instead of Arcane Explosion if you feel confident in your ability to aim the cone. To summarize, mages in Classic WoW are all about using the correct spells at the correct time to maximize your damage. They are serious contenders on the damage meters from the beginning of the game all the way to the end of the game, and they can support their raid with food, water, or portals to travel around the world and get to raid. Careful though, Mages are able to die very easily, so make sure you use your cooldowns and position yourself properly at all times. And other than that, let the damage numbers fly. Well, that's it for this video, you guys. If you liked what you saw and you'd like to see more, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below to follow my channel and see all new content the moment it's released. Otherwise, if you have any questions for me or just want to contact me for any reason, please feel free to join my Discord and ask me anything you'd like. I'll leave a link to my Discord in the description down below. But most importantly, keep the classic WoW hype alive!